As you can see, I'm surrounded by green. Well, I'm not surrounded by green, but we are sponsored by the good people at Wash and Go today. The lovely people at Wash and Go. What I'm on about, good people. And people often say to me, Mark, is it not hard being a Wash and Go ambassador? And I always have to reply to them like this. Being a rocket engineer is hard. Just ask Elon Musk. Being Manchester United manager is hard. Just ask the 4 managers that have taken over since Sir Alex Ferguson. Being an NHS worker, that's hard. Heroes. That is really hard. But being a shampoo ambassador is as easy as taking a bath. It really is. So next time you're having a really hard day, just run a bath, light some candles, put on some relaxing music and lather up with Wash and Go. Classic Wash and Go. You can pick up your bottle at any good retailer or by hitting the link in the description and getting it delivered straight to your door. Thanks very much to Wash and Go for supporting the United Stand. Now let's move on with the show. And remember, Wash and Go, it's invisible. It's invisible.
To be addressed beforehand, right? Martial his agents come out and essentially said Martial is looking to leave the club as soon as possible, ideally in January. And I think it's very important that we discuss this because, of course, it's something that we've sort of been discussing. I think everybody's been keeping their eye on who are going to be the striker options for Ralf Rangnick. And from what Martial's agent is saying, it doesn't look like it's going to be Martial because he is looking to leave the club. I'll read the quote here from Sky Sports News. It says, Martial's agent, Philippe Lamboli, hopefully I'm saying that right, Anthony wishes to leave the club in January. He just needs to play. He doesn't want to stay in January, and I will speak to the club soon. See, now that the end bit is a bit frustrating to me because it's like, what? So you haven't even spoken to the club yet, but you decided to tell big Sky Sports News? Okay, fair enough. You do your thing. I want to know from you guys in the comment section below how you feel about this. I know a lot of people have an attachment to Martial. It was just yesterday night when I was talking about, Martial of old, the one who looked like he could be, the next big thing, the one who looked like he could be the next Thierry Henry. I think that's what Jordan said on the show as well. And it just hasn't quite panned out that way. And from his perspective, it looks like he wants to take that next step. Now, I know a lot of people will be frustrated about this. A lot of people will be angry at the fact that, look, the new manager's just come in, you've barely trained. I think Martial's had 1 training session, but he got injured before or during he got injured in the training session. That's why he wasn't involved in any of the games in the past couple of days. And so a lot of people going, bro, chill, man. Like, come back from injury, fight for your spot, and let's see, what can happen. Who knows? Maybe the new manager can actually help you improve and develop, which is something that I think a lot of the players, including Martial, haven't really been able to do under previous management. And let's see where you can take this. Maybe you can be that guy that steps in once Cavani leaves, or even before Cavani leaves. Maybe you get in ahead of Greenwood, and that's something to talk about. Like, a lot of people will be frustrated that this hasn't been allowed to play out. And I get that. I totally get that as well. There is an element of, look, stay and fight for your spot. Of course, as fans of the club, that's what we want players to do. We want everybody to want to fight for their spot and look to try to get into that first team. But when you sit there and look at it from Martial's perspective for a second, and I think that's important because ultimately people will do what's best for them, right? Everybody's perspective is different. And when you look at it from Martial's perspective, the reality is he is somebody who's 26, he's entering his prime. When you look at the conversations that have been had around the striker situation, if we're being frank, anybody that discusses, who's going to be a loser now that Ralf Rangnick's here? Majority of people say, Martial, right? Majority of people go, yeah, Martial's probably the loser, right? We have Ronaldo, we have Cavani who's leaving, and he's been pretty good, so we got to play him before he leaves. Greenwood's on the rise, Rashford. And people constantly just sort of acknowledge the fact that, yeah, Martial's probably the loser of the situation. And from Martial's perspective, going into his prime, I don't think he's right now in a position where fighting for his spot is the best thing for his career. I'm somebody of the belief that, look, Martial, he's had his chance to prove himself and it just hasn't worked out. The past year or so, right, it's just not been great. Of course, he had that season before where he's, scored a bunch of goals and he looked like maybe this thing was working out. But the past year, it's not been great. And I just think he needs to play football. I think he needs to be in a situation where there's a bit less pressure and he can just play week in, week out. Because the player that was there, the AM 11 days, I don't believe that player is just gone completely. And maybe some people go, 11, man, you just like Martial. And I can't lie, I do, man. He was a great player. And we always joke about watching highlight reels and whatnot, but go look at the highlight reels of Martial when he was number 11 playing for Jose before we got Sanchez. You know, that was a serious footballer, and I like to think that that player is still in there somewhere. And I think the only way you're going to get that player is if he gets to go out somewhere and play football regularly. And the reality is that probably can't happen here because we just have so many, you know, strikers who are before him in that pecking order, and rightfully so. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's okay that he wants to leave. I think it's the best thing for him. And I don't think we should, you know, necessarily be hostile about that. Now, the way you go about it, I think is you know, important. And I'm not a fan of the whole agent thing. That just personally, just not a fan of that. You know, the fact that his agents actually just said he's not spoken to the club first is a bit frustrating. But ultimately, in terms of the decision of him wanting to move, I don't think there's a problem with that. I think it works out for both sides. If we can get something out of him as well, you know, that would be great. I'm seeing a lot of people already suggesting something. You know, yeah, Marshall, you want to leave? Cool. Can we get De Jong? Can we get this player? Can we get that player? You guys are great. You guys are great. But I'm sure there will be plenty of, you know, discussion now about what sort of deals we can start to see from him. Clayton Daniels, shout out to Clayton Daniels. He came over super chat. He said, I'm with Martial and Donny wanting to leave. These players want to play and World Cup is around the corner. Do what's best for you and your career. Yeah, like I totally get that with Martial. You're right. I didn't even think of the World Cup aspect of it, right? You know, Martial, he missed the World Cup last time, right? And I'm sure this time round he won't want to be missing it. And the only way he's going to get into that team now, realistically, is by playing week in, week out and showing he can be of service. So Martial swap for Harry Kane. I'm seeing a lot. We're gonna see a lot of swap deals recommended and suggested. Let me know though what you would do about this Martial situation. Let me know how you feel in general, right? Do you wish this maybe wouldn't happen and he'd stay at the club, or are you sort of okay with the idea of him moving on? It's best for his career. It's time to go. I'm leaning more towards that.